Hi, this is Boaz David from Human Bee. I wanted to go over and show you our format of cash flow form. The reality is that in the fashion industry, cash flow is one of the biggest challenges to maintain and manage and make sure that it's in place. In fact, it's one of the biggest challenges for any small business in any industry. And when we think about our business, the fact that there's a long time, long lead time in the product cycle, meaning from the time that you design and develop the product until you actually getting paid by the customer, there's a long period of time. And in that long period of time, there's a lot of stages in the product, in the business, that are going to need to be sponsored. And they are sponsored by the brand. Therefore, the brand needs to make sure that they always have money to spend on these necessary things. So, development, production, marketing, all of these things. Meaning, usually because a lot of the season are being sold 6 or 7 months ahead of time, the development and design process happen in earlier stage. There are orders for the brand that they will deliver and get paid for in, let's say, 6 or 7 months, but it's not money in their hands yet. And they need to make sure that they have enough money to go through their business expenses until they get to the point where they are getting paid by their customers. Many fashion brands, many startup fashion brands lacking in that part. And it's actually something that they either don't pay attention to, not aware of, don't know how to manage, especially if it's the designer that runs the business who are not as savvy with the financial part of the business. And it's very common for startups to find themselves at some point stuck without money. And it's it's not uncommon to see a situation where a brand has orders in their hands, but they don't have money in their hands to produce these orders. So cash flow is one of the biggest tools to help you do that. It also helps you to kind of see view of your business for a year or two, or however time you would like to have. It basically helps us see what are the expenses on a monthly basis, what are the incomes on a monthly basis, and where are these pockets throughout the year that cash flow might be tight, which means that you will need as a business owner to address this. So if you can predict this, if you can look at this view and see that, let's say in February till March, cash flow is going to be tight because there aren't as many sales happening usually in this time, because let's say you know you delivered goods and now you go into the process of design and development, so not much sales happening at that time. Then you want to make sure that your expenses around that time are calculated and they can be paid for. And that's really what was this cash flow created for. It also helps you understand, especially as a startup, to kind of look at the view of, let's say, the first 2 years and understand or have some idea of the stage that your business is going to be profitable. Just like any startups in any other industry, the first few years are going to be about spending more than getting paid for and getting revenues. And that's very normal. However, if it's managed right, it's fine. If it's not managed right, you might not get to that point of having a profitable business. So specifically about this cash flow template, the way it's done is that you can see here, there is a view of 2 years. So It starts in January, goes through the whole year, and then there's a second year. And if you'd like to see a view for more than these 2 years, you can always copy this whole part right here. I have a PC, so for me, I just need to do copy, paste it here, change it to maybe January 21. And now I have another year that I can calculate for. Okay? Let's look at the details of how it's constructed. This part is quite easy. You just write what years you're going to do this for. And then this section here, the top section, is where you will enter all your sales. Now, as a startup, it's probably going to be more estimated sales until you have some more real data to know what you're selling, when you're selling. But there are three options here for sales. One of them, retail at full price, meaning if you sell direct to a customer and you sell products in full price, how much you estimate or how much you are selling products at full price direct to customer. Then we have sales at discount, retail at discount. So anything that could be sales but discounted, direct to customer but discounted. And the third one is wholesale, any kind of business that you will do or estimate to do in wholesale. The other part that is included here is that top part in green, and that will cover any kind of investment or loan that you will take for your business. And that's the other great thing about this cash flow is it will give you an idea of how much money is needed. How much do you need to invest or loan in the business until it can sustain itself on its own and produce enough income to support the expenses and basically balance your cash flow. So you don't have to put money in, the business is sponsoring it. As you can see, it's done, like I said, on a month by month basis. So you can have a view of total sales right here by month. And then you can also see an opening month balance. So for those of you who needs more like real examples to look at, when you look at the sheet, it's an Excel sheet. The right tab is the template. It's a blank sheet where you can complete and enter your numbers. One to the left here, cash flow sheet sample. It's an example of what a cash flow might look like. Okay, now the numbers might not be the right numbers, so I wouldn't recommend for you to follow these numbers, but it gives you an idea of what a cash flow, when information is entered, what it might look like. Okay, so it's easier to show that because when I look at the example, I see that my opening month balance is $100,000 in that case, and that's because I've put $100,000 into this business as an investment. And then, as you can see, there are sales here per month, and normally there are periods of time throughout the year where you have more sales and less sales. So you need to be aware of that so you can then balance your expenses. The next main part of the cash flow is your monthly expenses. And here you can see a list of categories that will need your attention, and you will need to enter, if it's a startup, it will be a lot of estimates. If you're already in business, you can put real numbers. Now, one thing to really keep in mind is that cash flow is a living document. In other words, you can start it with estimation, you can start it when you're starting the business, but as you get more data, as you have more real numbers, it is highly recommended to update it. And in fact, it's not something that is being used only at the beginning stages, but it is something that can be used over and over and over again at any stage of your business. You can look at it on a monthly basis, you can look at it at a quarterly basis, whatever it is, and update this so you always are on top of this. Here you have a lot of components that are normally the components that a fashion business spends money on. If you need anything else, there's always an option for you to just do this. You right click here, you insert a line, and now you have other things. So I can put here whatever I want to do, whatever I want to enter. The idea is to go through all of these and on a monthly basis, enter whatever expenses I'm going to have. So you'll have certain things such as, let's say, electricity or trying to see, or payroll, that they probably will be consistent and will include the same numbers month after month. Rent is one of them as well. The other part might be of things like, let's say, development, production that will happen in a specific time of year and not on a monthly basis. So this is why we have a monthly view, so you can see each month what happens from an expensive point of view. This last line here will total all your expenses for this month. And here you get the end of the month balance, which means that number here is how much cash left in your hand after you had the revenues and you paid for all your expenses that month. What I also like about this cash flow is that not only did I have a view of my sales separately per month, I have a view of my expenses separately per month. I also have an idea of how much money left in the bank every month. I can then also look here at a yearly expense. So for example, if I want to see how much money I'm spending yearly on rent, this will be once I enter the monthly rent. So you know what, let me show you here in this example. So if we look here, the rent is consistent here. But looking at my yearly rent, I have $26,000 rent. Again, these numbers are just for the sake of example, but it gives you an idea of where you're spending your money. Because what will happen is that this is where you can make decisions as to, you know what, here, there, at this month, at that month, of this year or that year, my expenses are higher than my income. I want to go back into these numbers and see where I can spend less. So when you look at the numbers and we look at them from a monthly perspective and from a yearly perspective, it's easier to understand and make decisions as to, you know, maybe spending, what is that, 136 plus $1,000 on production is not the right thing. Or maybe spending, you know, trade shows, $23,000 is not something that I can afford. Maybe I won't do trade shows. So looking at all these will help you understand how to manage your cash flow. So you always are in a situation where you can cover your expenses and you can keep the business going and not find yourself in a situation where, like I said, you have orders that you will get paid for them once they are delivered, but at the moment you don't have money to spend on producing them. A couple of other things about the form. It has formulas, as you can see, formulas built in. So I highly recommend that unless you really know Excel and know how to work with it, do not mess with these formulas, because it will mess with the numbers, and what you'll get as total numbers might not be right. The other part, as I said, look at it as one of these tools that you should really visit on a regular basis, and not something that you do when you start your business and forget about it. This is where it can help you plan the next 2 years. This is where you can manage expectations. This is where you can see where you need to maybe push more sales, or where you need to not spend on things as much. It really will keep your financial balance of your business in place. Thank you and good luck. For any other information and help with financial budgeting and consulting, please visit us at humanb.com. That's HUMANB.com.